Our next speaker is Julia Lopez, or as Gennady said to me, J-Wo. Yeah. And she has been in the software industry for the past 16 years or more. And she's currently working at Harvest, one of our sponsors. And she's part of a small team that works on a really old monolithic Rails application. It's 20 years old. And today she will talk about this application and what they do to keep it alive in the long term. Please welcome Julia.
Okay, let's do this. First of all, thanks to the organizers for having me. If you've seen my previous talks, I am committed to this style. I do a lot of animation, so if you have like sickness problems or like epileptic issues, be careful. No, I'm just kidding. Also, I'm going to go beyond 30 minutes, so heads up, I'm sorry. It's like I'm Spanish, so I speak a lot. My name is Julia Lopez, or Julia, whatever you want. I'm from Barcelona. I've been doing Rails since 2011. And I love doing the so-called invisible work that makes other developers' lives easier and improve the experience in the background without affecting like customer functionality. Also called the unrecognized work, as Jeremy said. It's okay. I recognize myself. I'm like, you did great. Also, like developers usually tend to realize like, oh, thank you for doing that. So that's good. Bosses, sometimes they don't see it because they are not on GitHub, so that is okay too. So I like talks where people share their experience working in real-world scenarios, experiences that I can relate to or like have my thoughts validated. I also like those talks that I like immediately after I can go and apply it at my work. So I hope you get something out of this. And my biggest takeaway after prepping this talk for weeks and thinking about it is like, we'll misspell the word maintenance every single time. So thank you, the autocorrection, because that was great. I don't know how to write it still today. So I work for Harvest. I've been 9 years working at Harvest, which is a time tracking tool, if you don't know it. It's built in Rails since the very beginning, 2006, when it was born. It's not 20 years, it's 19, but like 20 like had a better like, impact. We've been always a small engineering team. Currently, we are 33 people in engineering, and 19 of those are developers. For me, that's small. I don't know if like you might think this is like a mid-sized company. In total, we are like less than 100 people. I want to, first of all, thank the people before me that like set up everything that I'm going to show today. I didn't write the code that I'm going to show, but I had to do a lot of digging to understand how we got to this point, which I think it's a skill we all need to have to maintain code properly, because you usually maintain the code written by other people, or worse, yourself like 6 months ago. That code is like horrible always. And depending on the size of your engineering team, maybe it doesn't apply to you, or maybe it does, and maybe you found like a way to fix something, and then you can share your experience with me. So this talk is about maintenance in the long term. So like we have to remind ourselves how it all started back in 2006. This picture is like the earliest that I could find on Web Archive. It started as an Excel file, as I guess most of SaaS companies started back in the day. Like when Excel doesn't do everything that you need, like then you try to do an application out of that. And this is the first commit that I could pull. It's like from 19 years ago. It was when at the time when like the source code of the dependencies was within the repository, like the repository itself. This guy, D, I never met him. He left the company 3 years before I joined. I asked permission to like have his name here though. But his name, it's all over the code base. Git blame you do, Git, like you find his name somewhere, right? So we are still maintaining his code like 19 years later. I know there is like a previous version, an SVN that I could not find. And the rumor says that like Harvest started like in Rails pre-1.0. Yeah, so probably one of the first Rails production out there. So what is this talk about? So I will show you how we operate at Harvest, like to keep up, like with the maintenance of a 20-year-old application. Our processes change all the time as like the team grows or like leadership changes, as like our business needs change or like the needs within the team change. We are like evolving all the time, and there is my personal opinion mixed on this. One of my colleagues said on a PR, there isn't actually a carved in stone policy or anything for a lot of things. Still, like, even if we have more developers now, some things like, do whatever like you think it's best. And we didn't even have linting Rubocop until a couple of years ago. So imagine like we were surviving with like inconsistent Ruby code for like 16, 17 years. I'm going to try to breeze like a Spanish speed through the basic concepts and dive deep into what I believe it's like an interesting gem that we use for like deploying with confidence. So why did I call this talk the hype? So apart from ChatGPT, like asking, like, I want to talk about this, what do you think about it? And he gave me it gave me the beyond the hype. If you like me, like to attend conferences, Rails conferences, Ruby conferences, not this one actually. This one was pretty like tame about it, but like it's all about Hotwire, Turbo, Solid AllTheThings, Kamal, and I'm there sitting there like, great, I love it. I'm hyped too, like Rails ecosystem is great, I love it. But how many of you do to get like a Rails new every day, right? So I don't get to use a lot of this stuff myself because I don't have pet projects. I work like 8 hours in like every day. So like after work, I want to do something else. And just to put you in context, like if you're familiar with Rails features, like active storage was introduced in 2018. We use Paperclip. It works. These people are maintaining a fork of it, and we're very grateful about it. Active job was introduced in Rails 4.2. No, we have psychic workers. We don't have the abstraction. That is okay. That works for us. We had no reason. I was actually asking Rosa if like she could give me a reason. So far, we are doing great. It works for us. But on the other side, gems like we were using this gem in the past to connect to multiple databases, but we now use the Active Record like native support. And you can see my talk about that. This is like free advertisement. And then like we were using this gem, for example, for like a WebSockets implementation. And now we use Action Cable, like since Rails 5. There is not a talk about that, but like maybe one day. This is just like a few examples. We truly believe in removing dependencies and use out-of-the-box native features if we can. But like you need to juggle a lot of like priorities when you work in a company, like in an app that like people are using, right? So what is maintenance, and what is maintenance for the long term? And my question here is like, who is working in an app that is 1 year old? Like 5 years? 10 years? So a lot of people here are doing maintenance for the long term, right? Because you don't code the same way for for the long term as if you would do for a one-off situation. So if you would see the scripts that I run in the Rails console to get something out of it, those are horrible, like no one, I never share those. Or I tell people, look, I did this script, it's very easy, very like simple things like that you can like quickly prototype. So what is the definition of maintenance? The definition is like the work needed to keep something in good condition, right? But when it comes to software, it goes beyond keeping the app running at any cost. It goes beyond implementing new features, fix user-facing bugs, because if like your customers complain and like they churn and then you lose all the money, patching, security issues like common vulnerabilities, exposures. Internet is dangerous. You don't have to be a controversial tool like 4chan recently. I think they had an outdated PHP or something and they were pound. So you need to keep up with those like security exploits, like your dependencies updated. Dealing with last-minute deprecations because you risk like your integrations are going to stop working. Like out of the sudden, QuickBooks is like, oh, we are deprecating this like 2 months from now. Go figure it out, right? Usually they give you a bit more time, but like sometimes it's that way. So you need to deal with that. So, but it's also like refactoring. It's like prepping the code before you add new features, make it more readable, use modern patterns, make sure all dependencies are updated before you start introducing new things. Like if it's an ugly code, you rewrite it. And personal opinion, maybe not popular, but I believe in the refactoring for the sake of it. I just like doing it. I broke things because I did it sometimes. Maybe always worth it. It was like always low risk things, of course. I also think like it's an incredible opportunity for you to like dive deep into an old code base. You know, like you find something that is a bit ugly. It's like, oh, I'm going to use my spare time to fix that, because you always get to the darkest corners of the application and the rabbit holes. Not a good place to be, but like always interesting. It's also about deleting dead code, which is the best thing in the world. Like deleting something that it has not been used. You don't want to leave it there. Proactive management of dependencies before it's required because of deprecations. Like I recently, Stripe had released a new API version like 1 month ago, and I just want to have it updated because maybe like the old one will survive for 10 years. I don't care. I want to be on the last one so I can use the last features, right? And I called it management instead of just upgrade, because it can also mean removing dependencies. So if like a library that you are using now or like a newer version has something that like it allows you to remove a dependency, like Rails is like releasing things out of the box all the time, doing that, you know, like putting the effort if it makes sense. Or even changing your code to remove like some custom code because you can use it from a dependency that you already import. Enhancing, I don't know how to pronounce this word, the test suite, which means adding coverage, but it also means removing unnecessary tests. Because you need, it's always controversial to remove tests, but you need to take care of CI. You need to keep a constant eye that like CI, doesn't have flaky tests, that it's not becoming super, super slow, because we keep adding tests. Like you build new features, you add tests, but you have to look at like the tests surrounding like, the tests that you are adding to see if it makes sense to combine some. Nobody wants to wait ages because like, you know what they say about time? That it's money. At least, you know, time is money is one of the slogans of Harvest back at the day. It's also about doing research or discovery, as Jeremy said, like have a sense of what needs to be taken care of before you start implementing. So you can advocate to your leadership team because you need time for that, right? It's engineering responsibility to like encourage to do the things the right way for maintainability, because maybe you will have a boss that comes and says, I want this done in 2 weeks. And it's like, why do you say it's taking 1 month? It's like, let me tell you more about it, you know? I know it's exhausting sometimes, though. Monitoring, not only in the engineering sense, by checking like your error tracking tools, like try to keep it like not crazy over there. I understand maybe like your experience too, there is a lot of noise, like one-time errors, you know, that sometimes they happen. But like try to keep it in a way that like if there is an actual error that you can like act on, you see it, you don't miss it within the noise, right? But it also means like keeping an eye on user requests, complaints, pain points, which will help you to build better future-proof code, because your product owners can come with an idea, but like if you know more or less where this is coming, like maybe you can anticipate better or maybe not. Improving performance before it becomes a problem. If you can detect the performance problem before like your users add 1 million time entries or whatever data you are storing in your databases, better, because at some point it can become a fire. Sharing knowledge, PR descriptions per programming, fixing the onboarding docs, comments in the code, if that makes sense, even if the code should be self-documenting, and documentation for like other stakeholders. And it's also knowing when to let it go, like when you are deep in the rabbit hole, or your side quests, you know, which is like something that like I don't know how to do very often, because I always have big plans for everything, you know. I wish I had unlimited time and I could fix all the things. And when you are working in an old application, there are a lot of things like you think you can improve, right? Is anybody like this? Good. I'm not crazy. So why is maintenance important, right? Why all those tasks that I've mentioned, and probably more that you can think, are important? It's like I could go with the normal reasons, like frustrated users because the app is flaky, frustrated developers because like it's stressful, like deploying something, it's always like, oh my God, something is going to break and people are going to start complaining. Frustrated leadership because we cannot iterate fast enough, as like they think it's like should be faster due to the code complexities. And we are always spending this energy to get features out like to our users, but like we need to deal with like those decisions for a long time. And at least if you are like me, that like I've been working 9 years for Harvest, and before that I had been at the other company 4 years. So I'm like taking care of things that I wrote like 9 years ago, which is like, oops, I was less experienced. And also like you want to avoid having like a class with 1,200 lines, real story, and comments like this, which, you know, don't worry, I know you're triggered by the typo, but we fixed it. We fixed the typo. And eventually we fixed that like weird spacing, but the code is there. That's main. That's main. I tried to remove that code a few times. I think I'm going to mention Jeremy's talk a lot. I was a bit triggered by some things, but I always try to remove this code as I'm going to remove this like line from the helper because this, I know this, whatever, long story. But I always try to put it like together with something else. It's like, oh, I'll do this big refactor of the helpers, and we never got to remove it. And now it's funny, you know. So this is me every single time that I try to remove that. It's been like 3 or 4 times already. But we also have comments like this that was added by D, that person that I showed you on the first commit, like 16 years ago. And it's funny because it's still there. And it's funny because that code has been like, it's different now. So I don't know if we just left it out of like, you know, like just to have fun with it. Honestly, we don't go to this code, which is like impressive because it's been working for 16 years, like with like almost no intervention. And I don't remember any headaches of like having to deal with it, fortunately. So jokes aside, it is important to keep up with maintenance because like we don't want to be in this situation. I saw this meme in another talk. It's like, I feel like developers, we really like this meme because we relate to it sometimes, right? It's like, there are like some things that are always out of our control, like denial of service attacks. We had those. Third-party APIs down. What am I supposed to do? Oh my God. And users complain to us, like, Harvest doesn't work. It's like, I don't know, Cloudflare doesn't work. I don't know, man. Code errors that make all the scooters suddenly stop, I don't know, in the middle of like the street. So we are used to this environment. But like, you know, technical debt is inevitable. It's inevitable after 20 years. The decisions that you make today, even if they are very well thought, they might not apply 20 years from now when like your feature set increases and like out of the sudden that pattern doesn't make sense anymore. So you are going to always have to keep up with new code that has like it's built in a way, and the old code that you didn't get to touch because it works because, you know, like you didn't get to work on that feature for a long time. But the point of caring about maintainability is to set up workflows to be on this space. And I did that with ChatGPT too. Great. I'm being competitive. So you don't want to be awakened by PagerDuty pings. You want to like deploy on Fridays and go on with your weekend and be fine with it, like no problem. You want to be able to ship new features at a reasonable speed, like deal with security patches like immediately because your dependencies are kept up to date. Use the latest trends because to be more productive or just because it's cool and you want to be there like riding the wave, the hype, whatever. And I put those examples for fancies, but at Harvest we are here most of the times, unless it's out of our control. And like we have a pretty good team of developers, and like our SRE team also like dealing with incidents. So it's usually this environment. So how do we do maintenance, and how does it look through all phases of development, right? who takes care of maintenance at Harvest? Is there a specific team doing like common maintenance tasks? Is the responsibility of the engineering managers to prioritize those tasks? Or there is some rogue developers, me sometimes, doing like side quests all the time. It's like, I improved this just because I wanted to, you know? So how our workflows consider the inevitable technical debt? So it's a shared responsibility, obviously. We are a tiny team. It cannot be like up to like one team or one person to do this. And we usually don't shut down all like engineering work or like feature development just to simply do maintenance tasks, right? So I didn't know, but there is a rule, you might know it. It's called the Boy Scout rule. It's like, it feels like everything like you do, you can like find on the internet somebody that talk about it. So it's about leaving the code better than you found it with every commit, right? Even if it's only slightly, like a minimal improvement, it brings me instant gratification. I recommend, you know, it's great. So you can improve the quality of your code over time and continue delivering value to your customers. But you gotta be intentional about it. You need to account for like, oh, this is going to happen. I know that I need to do this. So how does it look like? Like you need to account on it during project management because you need the time. So like people need to know like that you need extra time maybe to like, oh, I know I'm like going to go to a pretty old golf days, like to do like a proper estimation. We are not good at estimating. It's very well known. And I had to learn the hard way because you think like, oh, I can do this feature in like one day. But like, you need to think like, oh, if I'm going into that code base, I probably want to do more things, right? So you should not estimate on how long it's going to take, but like, you know, based on how old the code is or previous research. You gotta advocate for research. So it is okay, which we were not used to that at the very beginning, like a while ago, to say, I don't know, I cannot give you an estimation. Because sometimes leadership can take estimations as deadlines, and I'm like, no, I'm not telling you. I need like sometimes for proper research, and then I'll give you a better estimation. And also, as engineers, we are the ones like should help like product managers to define the feature, because for example, when a PM asks me, "Is this possible?" I always say, "Well, everything is possible." But we understand, we are the ones that can read the code and understand the state of the code base. So we need to tell them like, okay, this feature, like, let's try to like refine it a bit so it's more sensible by like for like the time that we have, the state of the code base, or like the size of the team, you know, like we are 3 people, we maybe cannot maintain like a huge, I don't know, whatever, service. If you have unlimited time, I don't think so, but go crazy. So we are the pink monster there, reminding product managers, maybe you cannot do what you want, like so easily. So what about implementation? So now you gave your estimations and you have the time for like, you know, do everything that you want. How does it look like taking care of maintenance like during the implementation phase? It's like proactive update of dependencies. I mentioned that before. Like if like I'm working on the Stripe integration, I'm going to update the Stripe gem as soon as I start working on a new feature, you know? Unless there is a major API change like right now and it's like going to take me a week, whatever. I work a lot on Stripe like things. So it's like, remember to use the latest patterns when implementing new things. So sometimes I told like new hires that like are not so familiar with the code base. It's like, I tell them, look, check the Git blame. If that code is like 3 years old or even 1 year old, like do not trust it. There might be a better way to do that. And like maybe we can consider whether like just to extend what we have or start like a new thing or use a new pattern or maybe refactor a bit beforehand and try to improve or delete your code, the code you see on your way. So instead of focusing on what you're building, like go check the method like on top or the one on bottom, like at the bottom, see like, oh, maybe I can delete that. So that way I could delete a lot of things, right? So now you implemented your things, and then we are going to the pull requests and the code reviews where maintenance also happens. Try to keep your cleanups and refactors separated, or If you're like me, maybe not. No, yeah, I tried. Sometimes I'm always like, I'm sorry, I tried. Verbose PR descriptions. Make sure that your PR descriptions have all the information. So 10 years from now, you go to the PR and you have everything there. It may even seem unnecessary at the time because you have everything on your mind. But while prepping this talk, I found a lot of this. Like, these are the complicated changes we discussed, and a link that doesn't work of a project management tool that we no longer use or like have information about. So if there is one takeaway you get from this talk, it's like even if you are duplicating things on like that are on Jira or GitHub projects, but like we use GitHub, so I put here, if GitHub goes out of business, we might as well retire. So that is okay, trust GitHub. But just like be very verbose at that time, because like yourself or another developer working on that, like 5 years from now, will be very grateful. I can see the benefit now after 9 years. And for, like, we have an enforced minimum of reviewers. Nothing goes to main without like an approval. We advocate for maintainability on your review, so that means like you gotta go beyond what you see on the diff. You gotta go like, okay, they are working on the Slack integration, right? So did they update the Slack gem? Oh no, so maybe I can mention that. Also take care of the tests. Sometimes I skip through the test and like there is a lot of things there that like we could improve. Also like try the feature, care about performance, check the dependencies, and so on. It takes a lot of time, but like in the long term, it makes sense. So, and at Harvest at least, because we are a small team and we work on a monolith, everybody's welcome to chime in on a pull request. If they have something to say, it's like, hey, God, I haven't worked on this for 5 years and I see now you're touching it, but like remember this, because I do remember. I also would encourage you, if you work in a small organization, to keep an eye on all pull requests. I try, sometimes I skim through that because who has time for reviewing everything? But I have a sense of what my colleagues are doing. So like maybe one day, because teams at Harvest, like squads, like 2-3 developers, PM, designer, QA, and engineering manager, those change over time. So like now we are working on a project tied to a company OKR, and then 6 months from now or 1 year from now, you are in another project like completely new, right? So you gotta be familiar with everything. Once it's been approved, there is a quality assurance step, like sending the implementation to our QA team, which is like not a mandatory step. Like as an engineers, we can decide whether we want to just ship to production because we feel confident about it. It's not a safety net. They are like part of the squad, so like quality assurance people are also like responsible of refining the feature, preventing issues, like considering edge cases like that, like product managers or engineers have not considered because they know like the way that customers use the application, or like there are tons of edge cases. If you have different permissions, if you have different like things people can view depending on like a million crazy combinations, so there are a lot of things to consider at Harvest. And they check beyond whether the feature works, like UX experience, performance, like internal documentation, if that makes sense, test requirements. They are like taking care of a lot of things. So once QA has given the approval, we can deploy. It's responsibility of the engineer to deploy that, like make sure that they didn't introduce regressions and follow up on needed changes based on observations in production. So is that it? This is like the flow of the squads, but what happens with the features that we are not actively working on? They need active maintenance. Everything needs maintenance because people are using all the features, right? We have a team called Delta Force. We thought it was important mentioning it because some people said it's kind of special to our company. This team has been present at my tenure at Harvest. It was gone for a short while, but it came back because it's great. I love it. Engineers rotate every sprint. It's not always the same people. They take care of bugs outside of the scope of the squads, one-shot requests. Sometimes we do bulk updates for users, like customize. Help with troubleshooting. It's inevitable also in a 20-year-old application that the documentation is the code. And because it's the code, like usually engineers are the ones that know how to read it and how to make sense of it. So sometimes we will get requests coming through Delta Force as like, as in like, oh, can we make sense of this like feature? Like, what about this combination that we cannot test in production for whatever the reason? And also low-hanging fruit improvements. I truly believe that having worked on Delta Force for months, I loved it. This was my chance at that time to do refactors. It was like, wow, I love this thing. Fixing bugs. It's like you fix a bug in a dark corner. It's like, I'm going to change everything. Great. That was a long time ago. It grew a lot my institutional knowledge. And I would say it's the best onboarding anybody can have at a company, like going through everything, and like just go figure it out. You have our support, but you need to like learn how to troubleshoot, like look at the logs, like debugging, etc. So if Delta Force deals with bugs, one-shots, troubleshoots, what about other things? There are more things when it comes to maintenance, right? So like, for the last 3 years, more or less, we had a team called Platform Development, because not only our needs grew as a business, but also like our team grew, right? So we had like different levels of expertise. We had to adjust to like an infrastructure in the cloud, more services that we need to manage. And we could just not rely on folks trying to do upgrades or improve our flows just on their spare time. Or we could just not have one engineer introducing a new technology, because then, you are in the limbo for a lot of things. Like they put it and it's like, forget about it, or like those people leave the company. It was like, wow, why are we using this? We don't know. It's just there. So this team was formed in August 2022. It was called Engineering Productivity before. You know where this is coming. So they care about engineering productivity, the local setup, linting. They set up the linting with Robocop, automation, CI/CD. And like enhancing the developer environments, observability. They set up a lot of observability with Datadog and other tools. They care about a lot of things. Very close working together with the SRE team too. Core system functionalities like authentication, things that go beyond like features at the app. They care about it, and major upgrades, which is Rails upgrades, Psychic upgrades, Ruby upgrades, and these upgrades, they need more intervention. So as you can imagine, for what I said, I am on this team now because I like doing that. And also security, which is great. Like there are a lot of security things that we need to care about, and that's probably going to be my next talk at Brighton Ruby in June. So stay tuned. So what about like what other things do we have? Like I'm going to like go very fast now. So like we also do exploratory days at Harvest every so often. Like it changes the cadence, but like every so often we get some days where like engineers can do either what they want to do in the application, like maybe you have a refactor that it's pending, or you can also pursue your personal education, which is great. So it's like always brings something good for developers. We got in we were not so good at having engineering discussions before, but now we got used to those, either via requests for comments on GitHub discussions and monthly meetings with senior and lead engineers, which it's been great because before introducing something, we have a discussion about it. And AI. I wrote this slide because I thought everybody should mention AI now, Anna. Which has not been the case. I am a bit disappointed. It was just Jarus, I know I said no hype, but of course we are trying to stay competitive. And as every other company, we are trying to like bring AI into our workflows. And I was thinking like, wow, wouldn't it be great for this talk that I like, I try something and I show it to people. And I did try. I've been telling some of you, it did not work well. So let's say it worked in progress. Maybe one day it will like the prompt. Maybe it's me that I don't write the prompt correctly. Maybe it's Copilot or Cursor, whatever. I tried both of them. It did not work what I wanted to do. So let's move on with that. Okay. I want to talk about like three things to end with, but it's three things. So like still a bit to go through. That I like to do, right? And how we do those. Refactoring, full rewrites, or do nothing. How do we decide, right? In 20 years, we accumulated a lot of technical debt, and how we decide about that. I'm going to go very quick through this because it's similar to what Jeremy explained. We do spikes, not as in the pointed metal thing, but like agile spikes. Before, maybe like 6 years ago, we were like, oh, let's do this. And we were jumping into coding. So now we got like used also to do this kind of exploration or discovery, like time. It's like a time where like you explore the unknowns of building a feature. You know, even if you think you know, you don't know. You don't know because there are a lot of like combinations, as I said. Those are time box. So like you don't go off the tracks, like you have to stop. And at that time, like you have probably, let's say 2 weeks, one sprint, and then you stop. You deliver a proof of concept, which is great because it's like vibe coding with a test and like YOLO, you know, everything's great. And like you do a proof of concept so people can click through and maybe like have a feeling on how that's going to work. You deliver findings and recommendations, and it allows us to plan and estimate better. It might take longer, but at the end, it would have saved me a lot of time on like side quests that didn't go anywhere, and I was hanging on them for like 3 years. So like either like you could decide adapting current functionality, like extending it a bit in a same way, so you can like bring the new features in, which is like we are doing. Full rewrites, which is what I did with the billing system. Like after a 6 weeks discovery phase, because it's like an extend. Like a big feature that we have, and like going like having a similar like this feature, this is the code, this is how it would look if we implement it in Stripe. We decided to go for a full rewrite that took almost like or over 2 years. And even within the full refactor, we were doing small spikes. Look for other options, maybe that option that you thought, that technology, it's not working for you, or do nothing and just implement a way. That's great too. Another thing that I like doing is dependencies management. I like the instant gratification of doing bundle update. I don't know why, it brings me joy. And before 2022, we were like just being notified of security issues, like going to all the repositories and bundle update this one, Rails, whatever, you know. But at some point, we decided that we wanted to automate things. Because we should automate ourselves out of the job, right? We, of course, use dependent bot. This is like a common thing that it's out of the box with with GitHub, sorry. But that one, we only use it for like some Docker packages, Ruby gems, and Node or like JavaScript libraries, but not only for security ones. We are not like automating other kinds of gems that are not like coming from a security exploit. Why not? I think at that time, there was like dependent bot was not very configurable, and it was bringing a lot of PR fatigue because it was opening one PR per dependency. I don't know if that changed. I don't know what changed, but in 2022, there was an effort to take like the gems upgrades across repositories a bit more serious, and we got to use it, and we started using a tool called Renovate. The colleague that set up this said that Renovate is the only tool that adapts to us instead of us having to adapt to it. I went through it. I thought it was incredible, but it's difficult to configure, right? And I cannot go over all the features, but like just to show you a few things. Like for example, you can say like, I want to have one PR per major upgrade, or I want to have one PR per minor upgrade, right? Or you can do crazy stuff like this one. It's like, I want to have like, it's a regex rule for Renovate. That I want to, every time that there is a commit on this repository, I want to look for this file on these other repositories, and I want to change something like a string. So this has allowed us to not only automate some gem upgrades, but also like within internal dependencies and like internal tools that we have with just one tool. So we don't have to have multiple ones. But it doesn't do very well security exploits, so we still use dependent bot for that. But that's okay. We did not set it up for all the updates, so in the meantime, we are still like updating some things manually whenever we have time, or because like, as I said, you are working on a feature that uses that dependency, so you take the chance to do bundle update, whatever dependency. But I feel obliged to share this command with you. I don't know, like you might know it. Do you know this command? Okay. So this command will tell you like how far behind you are on the repository dependencies from like the latest. So here you can see we are in Ruby 7.221, and the latest is 8.0. We are not that bad. I think we are doing great. And this is like the real depiction of one of our repositories after I upgraded a bunch of gems, because I wanted to fit it in one page. And of course, now you know like the gems that they need update, and you can do bundle update, YOLO. No, you cannot do usually that, because at least as we don't pin all versions, and it would be a mistake. But you can go crazy and do bundle update group test, like low risk gems, and then you get like a lot of updates out of that. Or you can do bundle update group development. It's like, I'm updating all development gems, and that's great because it's instant gratification and it doesn't have customer impact. You may spend 2 hours fixing the tests because of whatever, but that's great. Prepping for this talk, I found this tool, which I think it's very interesting. It's the same as bundle update, but then you can go selecting the gems that you want to use, and then it tells you like the URL of the changelog. Love it. It's my favorite thing now, so I'm going to use that all the time. Major dependency upgrades, it's done by the platform dev team now. It takes a lot of changes, and we try to do them ASAP. So like we don't have a time for 8, but it will happen as soon as we can. So like, and also like, like database upgrades. We recently updated from MySQL 5.7. I know it's very old, but now we are in MySQL 8. So like the future, like it's all ahead of us, So last, I promise, I don't know how, so the way to production, now we want to deploy all this. We want to deploy all the changes, all the dependency updates, like YOLO dependency updates, and so on. First of all, you need a test suite you can trust. Nothing that I mentioned, nothing can be done without that. So if you don't have that, work on that first. It might be slow, it might be flaky, it might take ages, but you must have this. So we trust our test suite. Like Rails upgrades, the test suite is green. That we do some manual QE, but then it's all we really trust it. That we got all the situations, but then you deploy to production, and you need to have eyes on it. So if you don't have that, if you don't know what's going on in production when you deploy something, you cannot do crazy upgrades, right? So you can react before any user complaints. You can not just about bugs, about performance, like we are using Datadog now. I like dropping logos, so I added a lot of logos. My colleagues told me about a lot of them. But usually Bugsnag, Kibana, and Datadog, and Grafana are the ones for me. You fix what you cannot see. Of course, we have continuous integration and deployment, like small PRs. We deploy in small chunks. CI needs to be green, and then we click the merge button. And now, since for the last 2 years, it's been automated, or 1 year and a half with Argo. So it's great. I click button, automated. I check the things that I need to check, and it's great. We use feature flags. Of course, we are not keeping long-lived branches with that we deploy at one go. So we have a custom way to create feature flags, because based on our the way we have our main model, which is the harvest company, you can set up a lot of things, percentage of companies, put some companies, test companies in there, and you can do things like this. It's if this company is in the feature flag, then oops, I'm sharing, I'm rendering something. Very common feature flag thing. We don't have to keep long-running branches, A/B testing, toggle features on and on without deploying, so you can quickly revert something if it's very broken, and roll out to specific users or groups to test production. You need a rollback strategy for big releases, like feature flags. It might be turning off the feature flag. For things without feature flag, it might be reverting the changes and deploying again, even if it takes 15 minutes, let's say maximum. That is okay. We have staging environments that resemble production. that you can deploy, like revert, see what happens with Rails upgrades. That's very useful because you never know with like an old application. And even like when nothing of this like gives you a peace of mind and you still have that knot on your stomach, there are some pull requests, some changes that they feel different. That doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter like the things that you have set up or like the confident, you gotta grab a click and do YOLO deploying. I call it that way. So like you have all the mechanisms in place, but somehow you like, because of your experience, you feel like, oh, something might happen because there might be like, I don't know, like we deployed a Rails thing and then there was an old cookie that like everything went crazy and everything stopped working. It was crazy. And we know when to do those because we work across time zones and our customer base is in the US. So sometimes in Europe, we are like, deploy. But we are a bunch of us, so it's great. Last thing, promise. There is something else. You don't get a break. When you need, this is like the thing that I want to get to, you know? Oh my God, this took so long. When you need extra confidence and to make tricky changes, like refactors that you cannot, like maybe you cannot feature flag them or because or maybe somebody wrote that code, that person is not in the company, and there is no way for you to understand why it was done that way. And I like to talk about a gem that it's called Scientist. Do you know it? Who knows that gem? Good. It's a Ruby library for careful refactoring critical paths. Because we are old now, we don't want to suffer that anxiety, you know, of deploying. It's maintained, built by GitHub, so it's pretty famous. Like, it's pretty safe to use it. Like, don't bring like gems that no one maintains to your code base. And I want to show you quickly how it works and how we use it. So it's going to be very quick. So imagine that you have a method that like checks whether a user is allowed to perform an action, and you want to change all your permission model, right? But like you want to make sure that the previous checks and the new checks work the same way. So you could create feature flags, you could turn it on for some people and wait, see people complain, right? You could do that, or you could set up an experiment. Like Michał, he talked about science and experiments the other day, so this is the gem to use for that. So you set up an experiment, and then you have a control block with the experiment.use that you put like the old way, like the way that it works. You set up a candidate block with the new way, and then you run the experiment. And for the user, like it will be like the old code was running, but with like behind the scenes, get a report if there is a mismatch, right? So you are testing in production like a pro, like we all do. So what happens next? Well, nothing happens because scientists won't implement reporting for you. They will give you tools, like they will tell you, you have to like implement your own class, including the scientist experiment, and report the mismatches, and all the information that I'm giving you is extensive. I cannot go through that here, but like go to the documentation. So you set up your class, it has a name, the experiment, it is enabled because you might not want to enable the experiment for everybody because like imagine that you are doing 2 SQL queries that are expensive. You don't want like everything going, it doesn't run on a thread or anything, it just runs on the same request, right? Whether there's been something raised in some of your comparisons, like internal things, and publish the mismatches. If there is any, like how you choose to publish. But wait a second, because I am showing you here the documentation on GitHub, and we all here know how to read documentation. So I want to show you how we implemented our experiment class in Harvest, which is very, very similar to like what on the like official documentation, you will see an example, like a full example. So it's pretty similar using our own tools. So here we are passing the enabled flag from the outside, so we can use feature flags to enable the experiment. We are publishing the results on first, we are sending stats to like be able to create Grafana to know if we are introducing performance regressions with the experiment or the candidate, and then we store the results on Redis, which is the the recommendation. So like then we go to Redis and we see like, oh, it was run this experiment. Where are the mismatches? And it will give you the stack trace, where it happened, and a lot of information. So what's our main use case? I I did a lot of digging. We were using extensively this like gem in like 2018 and 19. It's because we have a lot of customer data. We allow our customers to report on that data. There are creative uses of of our application. So you are like, there are a lot of customers that they don't use the application as we would expect them to use them. And there is more. So past experiments, I'm going very quickly, I'm sorry. This one, we wanted like classic, a SQL query. We don't know like if that SQL query is performing or not in a report. So we did an experiment with the control scope, the candidate scope. Here you can like clean up, like tell scientists how to compare the results. So in this case, we only wanted the ID, not the equal between the relations. What information do we need on the report, and run the experiment. We could use the candidate scope. Here we wanted to know if we could remove caching. So like you set up a context for like having more information on the report, and then like the control block with the cache, the candidate block without the cache. We could remove the cache. Take care of your cache, because some of them are not useful, and we have a lot of experience with that. Remove custom implementation. We had like some weird like custom code to go through the basic authorization header, and like Rails had something by default, so we wanted to know, like, because people use our API for like 15 years and we don't know what they are sending. It's impossible to go through all the data, so we implemented like an experiment for that. We could remove the custom code. Last but not least, promise, this is the last one. So this experiment that we are currently using, it started as a side quest of a developer that is not longer at the company. So you can imagine it's been in the limbo for 3 years. But I was like, oh no, I want to know about this gem. I'm going to take over it. So it's an experiment about whether we can use current attributes in our an internal tool that we use to track log events, change log events. Instead of having to prop drill is like how they call it in React, like pass the current user to all the interactions to be able to record this change log. We want to know if we can use current attributes. So that's the experiment. Basically, it's like, is it the current user that we are sending, like the one in like the current attributes? Because it's not only on the requests, that's easy, but also on like workers. We don't know. It's been there for 3 years, but soon maybe I'll do a talk about this. Like Rosa did something similar in Tropical Rails. I am sorry I cannot show you a lot of like nice stat graphs. Last pro tip: if you do something that has boards and like you have some satisfying Grafana things, paste them on your PRs so I can use them like 5 years from now. And thank you, I'm sorry.